Go.
Well, I guess best place to start is at the beginning. Dad was born in Missouri. He was in 1874, and Mom, I think she was born in Oklahoma. She was born 12 years later, and they married over near Claremore, and the house is still standing over there, the two-story house. Anyway, they moved out in the country, I don't know where, but they started having kids. Flora was the first, Flora Elizabeth. And next is Bus. His name was Harv Asbury. They call him Bus. And then there was Elsie Opal. And then Rachel Sylvania, we called her Monk, because when Bus first saw her, he said she looked like a little monkey. And we called her that till she was grown. And then, see, that's 4. And then I was born over Spavinaw. We lived way out in the country in a little old log house. Is one room, log house with a dirt floor. And there was a Indian, Full-Blooded Creek Indian was the midwife. She delivered me, and as soon as I was born, she took, this is April 17, 1950. And she took me out front yard. There was a spring right across the front of the house, and she put me down in that spring and washed me off. They thought I was going to die, but she said, that make big healthy man. And I guess that's the way they weeded out the weak ones in the Indian nation. But anyway, we lived there a year. We moved to Collinsville in 1916. And we had, let's see, Bub, his name Delcy Opal. I mean, Delmer Ova. And he had a twin. Her name was Delcy Opal. And she died when she was about a year old. We called him Bub. Oh, and my name was Snook, S-N-O-O-K. That's what it was, and they still call me that when I go up to Collinsville. And then there was another girl, Pansy Fay, and she died when she was about 2 years old. And then there was Jack Harding. They called him Jack, which was unusual. No nickname for him. And then Billy, Billy Ledema. She was the last one. And we called her Billy. And we moved to Collinsville, and we had 10 kids. We had a 3-room house there, and we had 10 kids. And I've told Harvey and Jeannie that it was ridiculous when they bought this house that they had 3 kids in 10 rooms, and we had 10 kids in 3 rooms. Anyway, we lived in Collinsville for a long, long time. We learned to swim in those old coal pits up there. We'd slip off. Mom didn't even know. She'd have killed us if she'd caught us. We never went to church. Mom had, I know where Mom is. I just know she's in heaven. She was such a great lady. She never turned down a bum that came to the door. She'd always fix him something that might be just green onions and cold biscuits or something like that that we had left over. But she whipped us. I mean, we never heard of child abuse then, but people would say it was child abuse now, but it was all done in love, I'm sure. Although we never heard the name love mentioned, where you hear people love everything. They love the book they're reading, they love this movie and this and that. And love, to me, has kind of lost its meaning. But we were kind of embarrassed to say love, so we didn't say it. I never heard Mom say it. We never said it to Mom, and I wish we had. But anyway, I started to tell you about the swimming in the coal pits. We didn't have any bathing suits, of course. And we were down there swimming one day, and there's me and Bub and about 4 more guys about our age, all naked, swimming in that coal pit. It's real nice water, real clear. And I looked up, and there's a set of girls. She was about 17 years old, sitting up there watching. Well, I didn't get out. These other guys get out just like she would, sit and they'd dive off the bank. And I was always bashful, and I stayed down in that water. And she sat there till they got out and dressed right in front of her. And she just kept sitting there. And I swam down around the corner. I could swim 100 yards underwater, I believe. Anyway, I'd come up, and there she sat. I'd go under, and I'd go back around, and she'd be sitting there. She was just aggravating me. Finally, the guys took her home. They went up to the cornfield, and I got out and put my clothes on and went to the house. And we lived in Collinsville. We lived in town, but we still had the outdoor toilets. We had just very few people had. We call it Society Hill. They had their toilets inside the house. And there was a wagon, we call it the honey wagon. They'd come by once a week, and they'd come down the alleys, and they'd pull this toilet box out and empty it in that wagon. We could smell them coming for half a mile. And one morning we didn't know they had come down this alley, and we started running down through that alley, and there was big old tall horseweeds. That crap was all over them, and we had stripes of crap all over us, clothes, face, and everything. It smelled terrible. We got home, had to put on some clothes, put on different clothes.
Well, if you didn't have your inside toilets, what was bathing like?
What was what?
Bathing like.
Oh, we took baths in a number 3 tub. That's the biggest tub you could buy at that time. And we'd fill that up and set it out in the sun. We didn't take many baths in the winter time. We had to heat the water on the stove and pour it in there. But several of us would take a bath in that same water, and it got pretty rancid before we got through. And going to that reminds me of going to school. We had to I was in the 4th grade. We had to fill out a health card every morning. I took a bath last night, and I brushed my teeth this morning, and we didn't even have toothbrushes. We used baking soda, which is very popular now for brushing teeth, but that's all we had, and we'd use a rag and put it on our finger and dip it in that and brush our teeth. And I still got about all my teeth. Maybe it was a baking soda. But anyway, we had to fill out these health cards, and they they thought, I guess, we're supposed to take a bath every night. Well, I waited a couple of weeks and got ashamed and finally put down that I took a bath. And the teacher caught up on it, and she went out and got the principal. There was 6 grades in this school. And she and the principal came, and this lady principal, they came and got me and took me around to each one of these grades. Said, we want you kids, you other children, to meet the black sheep of the school. He hasn't taken a bath for 2 weeks. It didn't bother me. I just felt like a hero or something being up there in front of everybody. And but I got home and I told the folks, and Elsie, my sister, they all were really mad about it, but Elsie sat down and wrote a letter and sealed it up. She told me to take it up there and give it to that teacher. So I took it up there and gave it to the teacher. And she opened it and started crying. She went out and got the principal, Miss Martin. She never cried for anybody. She never cried when her mother died, I don't think. But they came in and got me and took me out in the hall and apologized. But they didn't take me around to the classes and apologize for what they'd said about me. And of course, in today's time, you'd think about suing somebody like that.
What'd the note say? What's the letter?
He doesn't know.
You don't know?
The what?
The letter?
Oh, no, I don't know what it said, but she really told them off. And I had 2 cousins. They lived about a block from us, Sam and Elmer, and they were both so hateful. I didn't hate them, but I just didn't like them very much. But Sam, he was a big fat guy, and we had a creek running pretty close to the house there, come down to town and came by our house. And we were always leading banners, and I could jump farther than anybody my age. And I'd be the band leader. You never heard of banner leaders, did you? Lead. Anyway, you do something, the other one had to do it too.
Oh,
So like follow the leader.
Yeah, we call it banner. I'll banner you to do this. Anyway, I picked a real good spot. Oh, Sam. I knew he couldn't make it. And I cleared that. There's a bank about 8 feet high. And I took a big, long run. And I cleared that water. It must have been 15 feet across. Although Sam, he hated not to try it, but he always ran with his tongue and kind of galloped like a horse. And Henry and I both cleared it. That was my other cousin. But here came Sam, and boy, he was just galloping, and just as he got there, he stumped his toe. He went spread eagle in that mud and water. And he came up, you couldn't even tell he was a white boy. Anyway, he went home crying, and Henry and I laughed about it, which I don't feel too bad about it now, but I feel a little bit bad that we shouldn't have laughed so much at him. But Elmer, we liked him even less. He could outrun us. He was older, longer leg, and Henry and I set up. We took must have been a pack sack. A pack sack held 15 pounds of potatoes. Anyway, we put some bricks in this sack, and we set it in the path between our house and Sam and Elmer's house. And Henry and I went over there, and Elmer was eating breakfast. We started telling him that we had filled a sack full of rags, and said, when you get through eating, we're going to show you. We can beat you down there and kick that sack farther than you can. And he kept eyeing us, you know, and he's eating some scrambled eggs and bacon. Anyway, when he took that last bite, he hit that screen door before we could even get up. Down that path he went, just fast as he could go. He kicked that sack of bricks, and it just barely turned over. He was barefoot. We all were barefoot. And he grabbed his foot. It broke one toe with a big one, okay? And he was rolling around in that grass and crying, and Henry and I were laughing our heads. Henry laughed so hard that he crapped in his pants. He had to go home and change pants. But that was so funny, and it did us so much good to see Elmer. He was going to show us off, and the other thing, this creek, it had a big pipe, some kind of pipeline. It must have been a 6 or 8 inch pipeline ran across this creek. It was up kind of high. I could run across that thing and dead run. Old Sam couldn't even get out on it. Anyway, I had this terrible, but I had to run off, and I had to go. I went down with the water, and then I was out on this pipe. Sam came down there. He went down there, and he sat right down in that crap that I had done. And I could see it around him. It was that much. It just spread. And he didn't say crap. I smelled crap. And I smelled it awful strong. Well, I got as far out on this pipe I could get, because I knew I was going to catch it if he could get a hold of me. And pretty soon he saw what it was. And boy, he was so mad. He started throwing rocks at me, and I was dodging them. Finally, he felt this all over him. He just,
Tell if the battery's going down.
Flashes, something like that.
Okay.
you all have to sit through this again.
You're on.
Anyway, he had to go home.
Yeah, one thing.
He had to go home and change clothes. So he was really in a mess. And another thing, Elmer, we had to get back at him some way, so he was always showing us up running and everything. And we filled a sack full of, pack sack full of bricks and set it in a path. There was a path from their house over to ours, about a block long. And we filled that sack full of bricks and set it in the trail. Went over there, and Elmer was eating breakfast. Bacon, eggs, or whatever. He'd fixed it himself. I tried to talk a little loud. And we told him we had a sack of rags down there in the path. And we wanted to make a bet that we could beat him down there to kick that sack and kick it farther than he could. Well, he kept eyeing us and eating that bacon, eggs. When he got the last bite, boy, he threw that fork down, and he hit that door, nearly knocked it off its hinges. Down that path he went. Henry and I followed him. He got there, and he was barefooted, of course. All of us were barefooted. He kicked that sack of bricks as hard as he could, and it just barely fell over. Well, he grabbed his foot and fell out there in the grass and was crying, and it broke one of it. I think his big toe. And Henry and I were just dying laughing. Henry crapped in his pants, and he had to go home and change. And One thing we did, though, I'm not very proud of now, but there's an old man we didn't like very well, and he had a team of mules and a wagon. He had his wagon sitting down there at the barn. He wasn't home. And Henry and I got an axe, and we went down there and started cutting spokes out of his wheels. And those spokes are hard wood and really hard to cut. You had to hit them awful hard. We cut a couple of the wheels down, and it was Henry's turn to use the axe. And I was standing there, and he swung at that wheel. He missed it, and he stuck that axe in my shin. And I still got the scar there. It stuck clear in the bone. The axe stayed there. We had to pull it out. And that's the reason I can remember that one so vividly. And Bus was chopping wood one day, and he had a double bit axe. And that's an axe with cutting edge on both sides. And I threw a ball to Bub, and he missed it, and it rolled right under where Bus was chopping. He was swinging around with that axe, and he caught Bub right above the eye. And I mean, it knocked him out. The blood just flew. And they had to take him to the doctor and get it sewed up. And we, of course, got reprimanded for that.
Take your pencil out of your mouth.
And we used to, before school, we set our traps at night, and before school the next morning we'd go out and run our trap line, and whatever we caught, we'd skin it and stretch the skins on the boards, and scrape all the fat off of them, get them in good shape, and let them dry. And then we'd sell them. Sometimes we'd get 50 cents, sometimes $1. $2 was a good hide. And one morning we went out. It's about, I imagine, a couple of miles from home. We had this trap set under a rock. We got there and we didn't see the trap, and it was clear back under there. We had the chain. The trap has a chain on it about 3 foot long and a spike that you drive into something to hold it. And Bub got down there, and he was pulling on this chain, pulling that trap out of there, and there was a skunk caught in it, and he pulled that skunk out backwards, and it sprayed him right in the face. He thought his eyes were put out. It does really burn, they say. And I had to lead him home, and we changed what clothes we had that we could change, and we couldn't smell it because we were used to it. And we went to school, and they sent us both home. We stunk up that whole school because we didn't have but one pair of shoes, and that's what we wore. And had it in our hair and everything. And we started to work real young. I was 12 years old when I started in the grocery store. 50 cents a day. And a day was 16 hours. That was from 7 o'clock till 12 o'clock at night. And I got 50 cents a day. Well, how come I'd have worked that day? Bub asked me to take his place. He was kind of lazy, and he wanted to sleep in, so I went and worked in his place, and Mr. Gunther wanted to hire me and not let him come back. And I said, well, I'll have to talk to him. Of course, that was all right with him because he was glad to quit. About 2 or 3 weeks, we just worked on Saturday. About 2 or 3 weeks, he hired Bub back and gave him a quarter. So 2 of us working 12 hours a day for 75 cents, both of us together. And during the week, in the summertime, we'd go out and work on the farms, and we'd hoe corn or cotton, whatever they had to do, for 50 cents a day. That was from the time you could see till the time you couldn't see, daylight till dark. sometimes we'd get rich farmers pay us $1. And but while we were working at this grocery store, we were able to take home the stuff they were going to throw away, like vegetables that had been there too long or weren't very good. We'd take them home. Mom finds something. She'd find part of them that was good enough to cook. And we sold things by the barrel then, peanut butter in the barrels and sauerkraut. We had ginger snaps, and we had a quart can in there. We'd fill that can full, sell it for $0.10. But that barrel got down to where it was, probably this much in the barrel of ginger snaps, and bugs got in them, and Mr. Gunther wanted to throw them away, and I told him I'd take them home and do something with them. I had something in mind, all right. We took them home, we ate them, we just brushed those bugs off. It didn't hurt them, they didn't eat much of the cookies. And, we had a neighbor close to us that had a lot of chickens, and they roamed around a lot, and many times we've killed chickens in our yard, pick up an apple or whatever's around and kill them and have chicken to eat. And we had, of course, you can't imagine it now, but what we took a bath in was a tub that Mom washed clothes in. There was a number 3, that was the biggest. They come in 1, 2, and 3s. And 3 was about 2.5 feet wide, about 1.5 feet deep. Well, that was our bathtub. And in the summertime, we'd put water in it, set it out in the sun, and it'd heat up. And we took a bath quite often, considering we went down to Coal Pit and swam too. And it was quite a chore in the wintertime for several of us to take a bath in that same water, and it got pretty bad. And one day, I went to school, and well, to tell it like it started out, we had to fill out in school every morning. We had a health card that came from the county, and we had to fill out that we took a bath, and we washed our teeth, and once a week it was something like you had to wash your head. Anyway, all those were out of line with me, because I did brush my teeth, wash my teeth with a rag and soda. That's all. We didn't even have toothbrushes. You take a rag and put some Arm & Hammer soda, which you see a lot of now, to wash teeth with. And we'd wash your teeth that way with a rag. And I still have darn good teeth for 79 years old. So maybe you ought to think about that soda. And anyway, I didn't take a bath every day. I didn't take one maybe once a month. And anyway, I waited 2 weeks, and I felt bad that everybody else, all the other kids, many of them the same position I was, they put on there, they took a bath every day. So everybody was clean but me. The teacher caught up on this, and she went out and got the principal. The principal, there were 6 grades in our school, and the principal was a woman, real harsh, hard to get along with. Well, she took me to every grade in there, and I want you kids, you children, to meet the black sheep of the school. He hasn't taken a bath for 2 weeks. Well, she was lying, because I hadn't taken one longer than that. And but I didn't feel bad. I felt like I was getting some recognition. And I got home. I told the folks, and Elsie Boy, she was furious. She went and wrote a letter. I wish I had a copy of it. It must have been a bad one. I took it up and gave it to Miss Wiley. She started crying when
Oh,
she...
wait a minute. You didn't tell about, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry. You didn't say that she wrote one, did you?
Anyway, Miss Wiley, well, lost my place here. Just a minute.
It's my fault.
She started crying, he said.
Your teacher started crying.
Teacher started crying. Of course, I've already said that. I think that she went around. She took me around to all the classes. But anyway, when I took that, went home and told the folks, Elsie got furious, and she wrote this letter, and Mrs. Wiley started crying when she read it. She went out and gave it to the principal, and she came and got me and took me out in the hall. She didn't take me to the rooms. She just took me out in the hall and apologized. She was so sorry that she had done this. Well, that didn't make me any difference. And anyway, nowadays, you'd think about suing somebody, do that way. Forgot where it was now. And go back a little bit, when I was about 3 years old, had some marbles. Somebody gave me some new marbles. I was really proud of them. And I went down to the toilet, and I happened to drop one in the toilet hole. It wasn't a toilet stool, it was a toilet hole. There was a box down there to catch the crap. Well, I was trying to get that marble, and it kept sinking down in there, and I was digging, trying to get it. And I got overbalanced and fell through that hole, clear down in that box. And I was just covered with that crap. And my sister Rachel had Monk, we call her. She had to give me a bath and change my clothes and clean me up. She still reminds me of that. And all the kids around had, we called them beanie flips. They were forked limbs, about this long, that we'd tie rubber bands on. We cut the rubber bands off of inner tube and put a pocket on there, and we'd shoot rocks and peach seeds and kill birds. And now I wouldn't kill a bird at all, but I was so proud that I could cut a notch on there every time I'd kill a bird. Cut a notch in the beanie stalk. And my uncle, every now and then, he was chief of police. We happened to knock out a few street lights and maybe some windows here and there, and he'd come and give us a good talking to and take our beanie flips away from us. Of course, we just make more. Now you get thrown in jail for that. In 1934, I graduated from high school. There were 27 in our class. And the teacher came around, she said, you are a valedictorian of the class and you have to make a speech. I said, no, ma'am. I was really shy. I wasn't going to do that. She said, you have to. You can't give away the valedictory of a class. And I said, well, I am. She said, I'll make your speech for you, and you do it. Well, I could memorize anything then, and it was easy for me to memorize that. But we were up on the stage, and I was up there in front making the speech. I got about halfway through, and I just went as blank. All I could see was faces down there. and old Jack Middleton was sitting behind me. He had my speech, and he was trying to cue me in on it, and I couldn't hear him. I was like I am now. I should have had this hearing aid, but I couldn't hear what he's saying. I'd walk this way, I'd walk this way. Pretty soon he just said it out loud, the next word. Well, I caught that word, and I blurted it right on through that speech. But getting ready for that speech was kind of tragic. It's funny now, but I didn't have any suit. I didn't have anything but old patched overalls. Working at this store, I think I was getting about $1 a week then, and I ordered a suit from Spiegelmeister Stern. It's called, in the the picture showed a big, broad-shouldered guy with this suit on, a chain going down like that, and had one button on it, and it's called a zoot suit with a drape shape. It was $17.95. That was quite a bit. I had to pay that, so much a month, and I ordered it anyway. It came in, and everything fit with that coat. It looked like a Groucho Marx coat. It went plumb down to my knees. It was a zoot suit, all right, and it draped everywhere. And I had my cousin. She's pretty good seamstress. She cut that coat off, and I put it on. It was still too long. She cut it off again. She cut it off clear up to it had flap pockets. Well, there wasn't anything left there but the flap. There wasn't any. But anyway, that was my zoot suit, and that's what I graduated in. And my shoes, they had holes in them, black shoes, and I put cardboard in the bottom, so if they happened to see the bottom of my foot, they wouldn't see my sock. And I colored that with, well, you could get shoe polish then for a dime. It costs about $2 now. Anyway, I guess I look about halfway decent. I worked several places. My cousins had a job in the summertime working on they call it a work train up in Kansas. And they got me a job to work that summer. And we lived on this work train. We had a bunk car and a shower that the sun heated, and we worked really hard on the work train. Anyway, one time we were staying at a hotel in Paola, Kansas. I'll never forget that. And the town is built on a square. Out in the middle is a bandstand, and every night the band played out there, and the people from all over town gathered around to hear the band play. And we were staying at this hotel, and they fed us our meals, and there was a girl there that I kind of took a shine to. She was just a hard girl waiting on the tables. And that night that the band was playing, I went over there, and there was a fish pond with a wood bridge across it and a banister. And she was standing out there on that bridge, and I went out there and I was talking to her, trying to make some points. And I leaned on this banister, and I fell in that fish pond. And I went plumb under. And I don't know how that girl kept from laughing, but I could tell that she was holding it back. She's just about to die. Of course, that ended the courtship right there. Later, I worked at Wholesale House in Kansas, and then when I came to Tulsa, I worked at Orville Griffin Wholesale, and I just worked like a dog. We didn't have labor-saving devices like rollers and forklifts and all of this. All we had, the only thing that was a labor-saving device was a two-wheel cart with handles on it. We'd put 5 cases or 5 bales of sugar, and just worked awful hard. And Bub, I got him a job driving the truck there. And on Fridays, the truck drivers were all in, and we swept up to wholesale, and while we were waiting to go eat lunch, I was putting out some rat poison. It was called GTA, Gets Them All, was the name, and it was really poison. And I found a mouse that we'd been running over all week. It was flattened out. It must have been 6 inches long. And I had this fresh loaf of bread that I was putting that poison on, throwing it around, so I decided I'd make a sandwich. I made myself one, opened up a jar of mustard, and I just put some mustard and bread and made me one. And then I put mustard and bread and put that mouse in between 2 slices of bread. And I went up there, and it was almost time for lunch, and I was eating my sandwich. And I said, Bub, you want a sandwich? Oh, yeah, I'm about to die. I handed him his sandwich. He took it up to his mouth. He opened his mouth, and he saw this mouse's tail sticking out of the sandwich. Well, he raised up. There was that mouse. He started throwing up. He went out on the dock, and he didn't even go eat. He was sick. It just made him sick. That was another thing that I'm not too proud about.
I don't know why.
I worked there about 2 years, or 3 years maybe, and there was a sales job came open. And I told Orville I wanted to sell. I said, I want to get out. He said, I can't do without you in this workhouse. In this workhouse. That's what I want. In this warehouse. He said, you're just too good help. I said, I know, and I'm going to die here. It's because I work too hard. So he decided to let me sell. He gave me the money to go up to Elephant Trunk up downtown. I went up and bought me a new sample case. They filled it up with samples, and they had the sales book there, and it was in code. The cost of every item, probably 5,000 items in there, and it was all in blacksmith code, BLACKSMITH. That was, and I had to learn that code. My first stop was Locust Grove, Oklahoma, and I was nervous about doing this anyway, and I had to learn that code on the way over there. And I went to the first stores, Stafford Grocery. And this young man was back there in the back. We sold 25 pounds of flour then. Everybody bought 25 pounds of flour, made their own bread. Well, he was back there stacking this flour, and I went back there and I told him who it was. And he said, well, my brother owns a store and he does the buying. He's up there, and he's up there waiting on the lady. And I went up there and stood there till he got through. And he said, he's hard of hearing. And I went up there and I said, I'm Art Carter with Orville Griffin Wholesale. And he kind of, like it offended him some way. And I thought, boy, he really is hard of hearing. And I just screamed it out as loud as I could. I'm Art Carter. I saw a faint grin come on his face. And he was looking, and I looked around, and that boy was back there, and he was laying down on that flower. He was laughing and hitting that flower like this. He was about to die laughing. And this guy very quietly said, well, I'm his brother, and he owns a store, and he does the buying. Well, I picked up my sample case, and I walked to that door, screen door. They didn't have air conditioning. It's just an old screen door. And I had that door halfway open. I thought, what am I going to tell them when I get back? I got to do something. So I just went back there. And that boy, he bought everything that I offered him, and he was laughing all the time. And anyway, I did pretty good selling. And I later on, when I went to work for a food broker, that was in 1958, I went to Locust Grove. I went to this little store, Stafford Grocery. There was that guy that I had yelled at. He didn't remember me, but I said, I'm Art Carter, and I'll never forget you. I said, the first call I ever made in my life, your brother told me you were hard. He said, hard of hearing. He said, don't tell me anymore. I know what it is. I've told everybody that I know that same story. He said, I've enjoyed that years and years. It had been about 10 years. Anyway, went up to Miami. I had Miami and the corner of Missouri and Arkansas. I made all that territory. Anyway, I was staying in Miami one night, and I ate at that sizzling sirloin, and I had finished, and I was sitting there drinking my coffee, and the guy behind me, he was by himself, and he had just got his meal, and he said something to me, and I turned around and started talking. I talked to anybody, and he said, come on around and visit a while, unless you're in a big hurry. I said, no, I'm not in a hurry. And we talked, and he told me he had a flower shop over in Seneca, and he had been to Tulsa and bought some, it was about Easter time, he bought some Easter lilies, and he's telling me about his new car. It was a little old English Ford. English Ford. There's a small car, and he's telling me about it. Finally, I said, well, I better go back. I got to go up Gibson's and get me some material, go back to motel and make out my reports. He said, you mind if I go up Gibson's with you? I said, no, that's fine. He said, I want you to ride in my car. Well, I got in there. He wasn't a very big guy, but I was like, I had to sit there like I do after Doris drives my car. I had to sit there like this. And
While Doris is trying.
and we got up there and we went in, and I bought some things. He didn't buy anything. I had my stuff in a sack, and got out, and I set it down on this pedestal between us. Well, he got in, and I didn't think anything about it. He just got that sack and put it behind me. And I thought, that's unusual. But he pulled out of that parking lot and he went north toward Commerce. And I said, wait a minute, my car's back. Well, I want to show you how this old little Ford runs. I thought, well, okay, I put up with that. And we got about 2 miles up the road, and his hand came over on my leg. And I looked at him, he wasn't saying anything. And I just eased his hand off, didn't want to offend him. And we drove about another mile, and here came that hand again, up there. Well, it didn't feel too bad, but I didn't want his hand off. So I just shoved his hand off, and I said, where are we going? He said, we're going up here and take this dirt road back in Miami. I want to show you how it runs. I said, I don't care how this car runs. Turn it around. He said, but this is a narrow highway. I said, this thing will turn on a dime. Let's turn it right here. Go back to my car. Well, he got it turned around, and I'll be dadgum. I had to shove his hand off one more time, and then he he was real nervous. He got his pipe out and he could hardly light it. And we got back to my car. Not a word was said. I got out and got in my car and went to the motel. I got home. I told Steve, she said, here all these years, I've cautioned the kids about getting in cars with strange men. I didn't think I had to tell you.
You've got your paper up too high.
When I pulled a lot of boners. One time I was calling on Stripes. That was real elite stores here in Tulsa. I was selling booth fish, and I had to make good everything. If they had something wasn't bad, they'd just save me the package, and I'd give them credit. But I'd have to take the label and send them in. And all that fish, he had some booth fish packages, 3 or 4 of them, and they smelled awful. I don't know how long he'd had them in this trash box back there. And I took the labels and threw the fish away. And I had got used to this smell, and I didn't think about it. I just stuffed those labels in my shirt pocket. Went on and made the day, called on the rest of the Stripes. There were 4 of them. And about 3 days later, I got an anonymous letter, typed letter, telling me that now and then people get so caught up in their work that they forget their personal hygiene, and they should be more careful. And I would recommend some kind of deodorant he had on there. Well, I couldn't figure out what in the world. I thought it was a joke. Then I got thinking, it was that darn fish. I had made them think that it was me stinking, and I don't know what they think about me now. And it sounds like a joke that I would fall in another toilet, but I was calling on Sand Springs line, and there had been a big rain, and this store had, it was just flooded all behind this. Well, I went in the front door, and I felt like I had to go to the bathroom. Now, they didn't have a bathroom inside. It was outside, out there, and water all around it. And I went out there, and there was a board leading across to this toilet. And I carefully walked this board until I got right close to it. And that board turned over, and my leg went clear down under this toilet. It was an outdoor toilet, but it was the kind that, the sanitary type, that they dug a big hole down there, and when it got full, they'd move. Anyway, my leg went clear in it up to there. Just slimy stuff. And I came in, that butcher, I thought he was going to die laughing, because he had seen me do it, and he was in there leaning against the wall. I just walked right across his clean floor, put my leg up in his clean sink, and turned that water on and washed my leg and pants. I had to go home and change clothes. I don't have these things in, I can't remember these things in chronological order, but anyway, when I was in high school there in Collinsville, I managed to buy an old 29 Chrysler Roadster. Well, we'd load up that old Roadster with 3 or 4 guys, and we'd go out in the country, and we knew where these whiskey stills were out on the river. And they made mash. It was made out of corn chops and bran and stuff. And when it fermented and you got alcohol in it, they would run it through the still and make whiskey. Well, we would fill us up 3 or 4 jugs of this, and it was just like drinking home brew. We'd take it to town and get a whole bunch of guys drunk. Now that was terrible. I'm not proud of that either. And that's going way back. Doris says I can't remember when I was 3 years old, but in 1918, I was 3 years old. The war was just about over, World War I. They were burning the Kaiser in effigy in Collinsville in the middle of the street, and they had him hanging up there, way up above the street, and had these boxes and stuff piled up, and they lit that fire, and I watched that thing burn. I was on my dad's shoulders, and I can still remember seeing that Kaiser's head still up there. They were all arrested. You know, it was a stuffed dummy. The rest of him had already burned. But that things like that can stay with a kid. Jack was younger brother. He was 6 years younger than I, and he would try to follow me and Bub around everywhere we went. We called him tag along, and we'd throw rocks and rock him back to the house, and somehow he'd sneak along and go with us. And but he was dangerous. If you made him mad, boy, he'd hit you with anything. And there was a lady, some kind of mom, that she'd come there every now and then. Even though we had a big house full, we took in everybody that came. And she'd stay 3 or 4 days. Had a little girl, called her Juanetta. She kind of like Jack. And we teased Jack about Juanetta, and be fast enough to get away from him. But Bus was working on a car there one day and had his tools laying around there. Jack was standing there. Bub came around the corner of the house and he said, Juanetta. Jack picked up these big pliers, and Bub was running, and he hit him right back here, right behind the ear, and knocked him out. The blood just flowing there. And that's what it meant. You had to be careful about Jack, because he'd let you have it. I've seen him fight a real tough kid there in the neighborhood. He and Jack fight. Jack hit him and run till this kid catch him, and he'd hit Jack, and then he'd run up and down that road. I stood there and laughed at him fighting. But anyway, he wasn't afraid of anybody. Another thing you kids can relate to is down in Houston once. I was out there on the patio watching Harvey Lee ride this skateboard, and it looked like so much fun. And he got off of it, and I made sure nobody was around to see me get on it. But I got on that skateboard, and that thing felt like it had an engine in it or something. Boy, it took off down that thing, and I saw I was going to hit the door, and I left it, and that skateboard went right through that patio door, big plate glass door. And when I got home, I had kind of insurance that would take care of stuff. And I called this lady. I said, I'd like to report a voluntary accident. Yes, Mr. Carter, what was the nature of the accident? I said, well, there was a skateboard went through a patio door, and I was responsible for that. She said, and who was on the skateboard, Mr. Carter? I said, well, I was. And she's writing that stuff down. She said, and how old are you, Mr. Carter? And I said, 55. And she didn't ask any more questions for a while. I could tell she was dying laughing. And then I called Harley and told him I took care of this. He said, he was laughing too, and he said, well, I already took care of it. Our insurance paid for it. Another stupid thing I did, Skip, my nephew up in Collinsville, called indoors, told us to come up and bring the boat. He had a jet bike up there that he wanted me to ride because he knew I'd try anything. Got up there, I'd never seen a jet bike before, but I got on it. I took out across, it was at Lake Ulaga. Took out across this water, just riding it like I'd always ridden one, and doing about 40 miles an hour, and I came back into the bank, and I turned too sharply, and this thing threw me off, and I went over it out in front, and it came, and the keel of that thing was sticking down there. It split my head open like this. I came up. I was kind of addled. It took me a while to come up. They were all running down there. Blood was all over me. And Skip Jeannie took me to the hospital. And they were sewing it up. And the nurse was filling out Medicare papers, and she said, what was the nature of this accident, Mr. Carter? And I said, I was riding a jet bike, and I said, don't put that on there. She said, I have to put it on there. Besides, you ought to be proud of it. Anyway, and then about 2 weeks later, maybe a week later, we went on vacation with two friends of ours. We got to Durango, Colorado. It was time for these stitches to come out of my head, and I went downtown to the hospital. This young nurse took me back to the room, and she was asking me this question. I told her to skateboard, and she was thrilled. Oh, we just bought a jet boat, a ski boat, and I'm just learning to ski, and oh, she just really enjoyed talking. And finally, this young doctor came in, and he got caught up in it and talking about skiing, and he finally took the stitches out, and he had this form letter. I saw it. It said minimum charge $25. He marked through there and put $5. He just charged me $5 for that call.
He knew it. He thought anybody's that stupid would have the money.
Like I was telling you, we used to make our own toys. We would make bows and arrows, and they'd shoot pretty good. We'd have light arrows made out of horseweed or something, and we could make helicopters that would do like this and turn them loose, and they'd go like a helicopter. And we'd make our beanie flips, and we made valve hoopies. That was valve, we call them valve hoopies. We'd get the valves that these garages took out of cars, and we'd nail them on a board and put an engine on them, tie a string on it, and pull them. We'd actually wear those valves out on those things, trailing on the ground. And I got some stories Dad used to tell. He had some good ones. I wish I'd have had this kind of thing for him. He said after the Civil War, it was pretty rough up there in Missouri, and they had guys that would go around and raid places and these farms and get cattle and stuff, and sometimes even kill people. And my grandpa had gone. He might have been one of them, was out raiding some other place, but Grandma took all these kids. They had 15 kids. I don't know how, about half and half, I think. And she had a woman that helped her take care of them. Well, they were in the woods, all these kids, and there was a bear came up there, and this hired woman took the axe and fought that bear and ran it off. And the next day they found that bear dead down there. She'd hit it in the head with that axe. Now that was rough living. And Dad has told about the way that his dad did. He had an old mule he wanted to sell. And the old mule was so old it was turning gray. And he bought a bunch of shoe polish and he polished these gray hairs on that old mule and sold it for a younger mule. Now that things that they did.
No, we don't stop
And they
bragging.
said they had some sheep and they'd have sheep races and they'd ride these sheep and get them hot. Sometimes they'd even die. Well, there's some old man that saw them riding these sheep and he told on them and Grandpa really gave them a beating. Well, they laid up there on this trail at night with butcher knives. They were going to kill this old man if he came by. If he'd come by, they would have killed him. But it just happened the old man didn't come by. Because it was wild then. That's back in, after the World War, after the Civil War. And Aunt Sally had, some guy was coming there to see her there at the farm, and none of them liked him. And I told this guy, he said, if you come back, I'm going to kill you. Well, that guy didn't believe him. This guy came back, and to see Aunt Sally, Ike went in and got this old gun. I've seen this old gun. It's an old rifle, real heavy. And this guy was out in the yard, and Ike was coming up to this gun. Grandma was hanging on the barrel. Ike still shot that guy and killed him. And they took him out there and buried him right there on the farm. No questions were ever asked. That's how wild it was then.
You called your grandpa Ike?
Huh?
Your grandpa was Ike?
Your
No,
uncle.
that was my uncle.
Oh, your uncle.
Dad's
Okay.
brother. And they said Grandma would, the kids liked sugar. They just eat it then because it's kind of a rare thing, I guess. But Grandma would take the sugar and when she was going to leave the house, and she'd put it up in the attic and had a big hole there. Well, Dad and Ike and a couple more of the brothers decided Ike was the smallest one. He was a little small man. And they piled up. And they used gunpowder a lot when they shoot their guns. Well, they piled a bunch of this gunpowder up in the floor and put a tub on top of it. And put Uncle Ike on top of this tub, and they were going to blow him. This sounds crazy. They were going to blow him up into the attic where he could get that sugar. Ain't that crazy? But anyway, black powder has to be compressed before it has any power to it, and it just poofed out, made a big mess on the floor. And Mom told about one time that her mother, she said her mother would never turn anyone away who was hungry, and Mom was the same way. I've seen Mom feed bums that we lived close to the railroad. Mom would fix something for them, no matter what. She'd fix something for them to eat. And her mother was that way, and there was a cowboy, a black cowboy, stopped there, and he wanted something to eat. And Grandma fixed a meal for him. And when he left, they found a $1 bill. That was a big tip. They found a $1 bill he'd left for his meal. And later on, they caught this guy. That was Cherokee Bill. He was a famous outlaw then. And they hanged him.
That was your grandma thing? Your mother or your grandma then?
My mother was there, but she was just a little girl.
Oh.
Grandma, her mother is the one who fixed the meal for her. Bub and I used to go to the State Fair at Tulsa. There'd be a truck go from Collinsville, take a bunch down there, and we had 50 cents apiece to spend all day long at that fair. And I spent mine real quick. We got there and there was a guy, I like to make model airplanes and stuff. And this guy had a knife that was amazing. Boy, he'd just make those chips fly. He'd pick up a piece of glass and, boy, just shave that glass. And I thought, boy, I've got to have one of them. It's 50 cents. No, it's $1. And I didn't have enough. And went on up to Midway. I thought, I'm going back and see if he'll sell it. I went back and he was putting his things in his big old trunk, getting ready to leave. And I said, you know that knife, it just fascinates me, but I don't have but 50 cents. He said, that's all right, Sonny, I'll let you have one for 50 cents. He dug down in his trunk and gave that knife. That thing, I tried to whittle board and it wouldn't even, it just turned up the blade. It wouldn't whittle anything. And that's the reason he was trying to get away so fast. Bub and I used to take Dad's lunch. He worked at the coal mines out north of Collinsville. And he always liked a hot lunch. He didn't want sandwiches. And Mom would fix potatoes, boiled potatoes and beans, and biscuit, maybe a green onion or so. And we'd take that lunch bucket out to him. And we, one day, going out there and that, boy, that we were barefooted in that old road where the wagons had flooded up so much as ankle deep in hot dust. And it was just really painful to walk in. We'd try to walk alongside, get sandburrs. But anyway, we got out almost there and we saw a rabbit. And we started throwing that rabbit and running this pipe. Well, I set that bucket, lunch bucket down at the end of that pipe and we started poking sticks, limbs in there, and we poked that rabbit and he ran out, he hit that dinner bucket, and we had to scoop up the stuff and put it in the dishes in this lunch bucket. We took it on out there. That night when Dad come in, oh, he was, what in the hell did you put in my lunch? They even had sandburrs in it. And he just raised heck with Mom, and it wasn't her fault at all. We finally had to take our beating for it. But we'd go out there, these lunch buckets, these guys would hang them around up in the shade, up in these trees. Bub and I'd get these lunch buckets and go through them and get things that we never had at home. We'd get an apple here and an orange here and a cookie or a piece of cake. Raid their lunch boxes. And we never let them know we did anything like that. But those guys, I'm sure, got on to their wives about it. Another crazy thing I did, Bob Self, that was my brother-in-law, he and I were out fishing in the lake. And I saw a big water moccasin laying out there, sunning himself, and I threw my line over that snake, and I reeled it carefully, got it up there where the plug was right on, and I jerked it, and I hooked that snake right in his middle. Well, he came, he knew where that came from, and he came toward me as fast as he could go, and I was winding the thing, and I couldn't keep up with him, and I was holding it up, and he got to the end of it, and he's just lunging, trying to get to me, and I hollered at Bob, and Bob came up and killed him. I never tried that anymore. A lot of things I don't remember about all of this, but one trip I'll never forget was going to Yellowstone Park with Harvey and Gina and the kids. They rode in, we all rode in we had the station wagon, station wagon. And at night, they slept in the station wagon and put me out there to babysit with those kids. And
In the trailer.
in the trailer, yeah, we had a trailer, and I don't know how we got some wine anyway. Leanne had been drinking. We all drank some of that wine, and Leanne was on the bunk up here above me, and she'd lean over, half the night she was doing that, and I was so glad when she finally went to sleep. And I'd get up real early. I'd get a lot more sleep than the rest of them, I guess. I'd get up real early and go wake up Harvey, gripe Harvey to death. I'd get him up about 5:30 or 5 o'clock, and we better get on the road while it's cool. He'd grumble and gripe, and he wouldn't let me read the paper on the way because I'd snooze behind. He'd grab that paper from in front of my face.
You probably remember this.
But anyway, we had a lot of fun at that.
Well, that one time you didn't change your watch, so you were up at like 3 o'clock or something.
Yeah, I don't think you're telling the whole story here.
Well, they say
There was a time change you didn't adjust for?
Oh, yeah, okay. We went through the time zone. I didn't change. I got them up a little bit earlier.
Like 3.
We did that to a guy he was selling with one time too, and got him up, looked at his watch wrong, got him up like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I had forgotten. When I was selling, I had to go to Wichita, Enid, all that Western Territory, and set up displays of Brock's candy. And I had a Mexican boy with me, and we stayed at Enid one night, and I got up, I shaved, and went there, sat down. Old Joe was over there just snoring away. Hey, Joe, get up. We've got to get on the road. We've got to get to Wichita today. We got 2 stops before that. He got up and grumbled, and he was in there shaving in the bathroom, and he said, "Damn you, Art." I said, "What's the matter with you?" He said, "Hell, it's 3 o'clock." And I had looked at my watch wrong, and I got him up at 3 o'clock to shave and eat breakfast. Anyway, he went back to bed. But anyway, up there at Yellowstone, Harvey Lee and I were the fishermen. We carried our rods with us all the time. And whenever there was a fishing zone, Harvey and I were there to try that little lake out. There's little old lakes. And we'd catch fish who weren't very big, and we'd throw them back. One time I was going down there's a lot of people in that place. As big as that lake is, you'll see a lot of people. But we were going down this narrow trail. Here came this guy. He had a real nice white sweater on. I had my fishing pole, fishing rod over my shoulder, and I had the lure on it, jiggling back there. And I passed him, and one jerked me, and I looked, and I had hooked him in that real nice sweater. Hooked him right here, about the shoulder. And boy, he didn't think it was funny at all. And I had to work quite a while to get it out of there without cutting it out. And I apologize. He never said one word. He And we, oh, man, oh yeah, I took a lot of pictures out there. When I'd start to take the film out, I wouldn't have any film in the camera. I remember the highest falls there, and I climbed down these ladders as far as they'd go, and then down the rocks, and I got down under that and took nearly a whole row of movies. Got up top, take it out, didn't have any film in it. And I guess I must have been half asleep most of the time, but that old car Harvey had used a lot of oil. It was running low on oil, stopped, put oil in it, and I grabbed a can and opened it. Had it up there ready to pour it in, and Harvey grabbed my arm. I had a quart of brake fluid in my hand. I was going to pour that in there. It would have had to drain the whole thing, but Harvey caught it. Well, let's see what. Oh, the thing about you remember the place where we ate hamburgers and they had them little bitty old hamburgers? And Russell ate 12 of them. Little hamburgers, they were just about this size. I think Russell ate 12 of them. And I about run out of stories I can think of.
What happened to your camera at Mount Rushmore?
Oh yeah, we stopped at Mount Rushmore on the way back, and there's a little place there that people gather and look at this, and it's a majestic thing to look at, these faces up there on the mountain, and it's real solemn, and they're playing this music, and I had taken all the film I could of that place, and I was carrying and swinging it along, and everybody was real quiet, and this thing that was holding my camera, it unscrewed, and that camera came off, and it hit the pavement and just shattered. And my film went across here, and lens went one way. It just shattered the camera. And they never turned around. I could see all 5 of them standing over their shoulders shaking like this. And Harvey had told them, "Don't look around. We know who it is."
Tell about the worst flood out at Manford. About
Anyway, there was a lot of things at Yellowstone that I remember. It's too many to talk about. But Doris reminded me of the biggest flood that we've ever had out at Lake Keystone. And I had camera trouble again. I climbed out on this railroad bridge. The water was clear up past the warning. The warning light hung down from this bridge about 3 feet. Well, this water was clear up over that light, and I got out there and was taking pictures just so I could prove this to people. And I got back to the house. I didn't have any film in the camera. Bruce was asking me about what some of the things that I've seen in my long life that were impressive, and I believe the most impressive things happened during my lifetime is TV, because way back there in the 20s, when I was in grade school, they were talking about that someday we'd be able to turn on a little box over here and we could see these people acting and talking in New York City and anywhere in the world. That can't happen. That can't be. Well, it's an everyday thing now. And even electric lights were really something to me. We burned kerosene lights when I was home. We'd even